Take 1780. This is Ace from Aeraco.
This is TJ, music manager.
And if you guys want to know some of the inside secrets to the music industry and get some tips on how to take your artistry to the next level, then you're going to want to tune in to Sold Out.
Guess who's back? I'm cooking the lightning. I'm trimming my pain.
A lot of dumb luck, to be honest with you. It was, I was fresh out of college. I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. That was a dream of mine, and things were really looking good. And ended up giving up baseball for a girl, and it's that whole sob story of left what you love, dated a girl, then the relationship didn't work out, and then you find yourself wondering, like, now what? And for me, I was working a lot of very weird jobs, cabinet shops and loading trucks at Dollar Tree and just weird things, trying to figure out what was next for me. And, music's always been a passion of mine, and charities have always been a passion of mine. And I kind of put together a concert to raise money for my favorite charity, and ran into some people who were connected in the music industry and said, you'd be really, really good at this. Like, you ever think about getting in the industry? And for me at the time, I was 23 years old. I didn't have the first clue about the music industry. And, but it sounded exciting, so why not? And that was it. I kind of just jumped in from there. I was, met with the Disturbed guys who were based out of Chicago, and looking for somebody to come on board with the management side of things. And we all hit it off, and next thing you know, I'm working for Disturbed and trying to figure out this crazy thing called the music industry.
And so you were thrown into the center of the universe in a very short period of time.
Yeah, Disturbed was at that point on their second album. So they had already released Down with the Sickness, and had gotten a lot of notoriety, especially on Ozfest. They moved from a side stage to the main stage, and were starting to blow up. And I think with me, I think there was some benefits to having me on board, being a younger guy and kind of their target audience. I could give some insight at least to how people were feeling or thinking, or maybe some fresh ideas. But at the same time, when you're such a talented band like they are, it's like a train. Nothing's gonna stop them. They're gonna keep going till they're all the way at the top. I just don't think any of us knew what the top actually would be, and I still don't know if anybody knows that today. Oh, I mean, with the Disturbed guys, there's so many. I mean, having the opportunity to travel across Europe with that band and see what the crowds are like over there and how much they really embrace rock overseas was, just a incredible experience. I remember they played Rock am Ring in Germany, 80,000 people, and I was looking for any excuse I could have to go just walk across the stage. It's one thing being side stage during a performance, but it's another thing to actually walk in front of 80,000 people. And I noticed one of them needed a water, or their water fell over or something like that. So I made the choice to run out there and put the water back on the drum riser. But even though you're not playing, just to walk in front of a crowd like that, it's exhilarating. I can't imagine what it's like to actually physically perform. And the adrenaline rush those guys probably get.
When was that?
Oh, I want to say 2009 or so. Yeah, it was. We had just released the album Indestructible, So Inside the Fire was the new single at that time, and that quickly went number one. The album quickly went number one. In fact, I remember distinctly, we were over there the week that the album actually came out. I think we left to go overseas the day the album came out, and then we were over there when it hit number one, and it was, no one expected it to be that hot right away. But again, those guys are so talented at what they do, and they put so much energy and effort into all their music. Even though we were surprised, I guess, thinking back, I don't know, we shouldn't have been. They're just so good at what they do. The biggest thing I can tell you right off the top is social media. When I first started in the industry, social media was just getting going. There was MySpace, I think, at the time, and you had your top 8 friends, and you could put your favorite music on your, cover page, which seemed great. But then as we get into the Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and, all these other social media platforms, I think artists, especially those starting out, are too reliant on it, and it's a detriment. As much as it is a great thing to be able to get exposure, it's also a detriment because people don't want to take the time to hustle like they used to. They don't want to go pass out flyers outside a place like the Metro. They don't want to put ads in a newspaper. They don't want to go support other bands at their shows and, put awareness about their show out there. It's all about, hey, we got a concert, we're going to tweet about it, we're going to post about it, we're going to make a event page about it, and you leave it there. And, I just think that mentality of losing that hustle is something that's hurting a lot of bands. And I don't want to call it lazy. I just don't know if people know better these days, because now we're getting into generations that's all they've had is MySpace and Facebook, and they don't know any different. But I think you really need to research and do the time and figure out how a band like Disturbed or Metallica or anybody got to where they are. It wasn't because there was social media, I can tell you that. It was because they busted their butts and did whatever it took to get to where they are now. Let me start off by saying that there are a lot of shady people in this industry. That's number one. And I think that when you're especially a young band, let's say you're a good young man, up and coming, and you're catching the eyes of others, people are going to gravitate towards you and they're going to want to be a part of what you're doing. The problem is that the majority of those people are probably not the right people to work with you, and people who are probably looking out more for their own interests than they are yours at the end of the day. So with bands, they need to really do their due diligence and, interview people. Just like, you go for a job interview and you want it to be with a company that you love and admire. Even in that interview process, when they're done asking you questions, it's important to ask them questions to make sure that it's still a good fit and you know what you're getting into. And the same thing is with bands. I mean, you really want to go through a tough process and figure out, is this person the right person for me? On top of that, they have to love what you're doing. It can't just be because you're great at it. They need to be like, this band is amazing, I'm behind it, I love their music, I'm just as passionate about their music as they are. Because when they're not, and they see dollar signs, they're just not invested. They're just not invested as much as they should be. They're just looking at, how can we make more money? How can we, put more money in my own pocket? Instead of, how can we do this the right way? Make sure we have all our bases covered. If we make a lot of money at first, great. But if not, we see a bigger picture here. And that's really important. You just want to find good people, and there's not many out there.
I know.
Every band, if you ask every band has a horror story of somebody shady that they've ended up working with, and when they look back on it, all of them say, I should have asked this question, or I should have done this, I didn't have a good feeling, but it just seemed like a great opportunity. And that's the thing, a lot of these opportunities are too good to be true, and they sell you on promises and dreams and your hopes. And at the end of the day, I always tell anybody in this industry, anybody who makes you a promise, run away as fast as you can, because this industry is so tough to predict and so tough to be a part of that there's nothing that can be promised. It's all a lot of hard work, a lot of no's to get to where you want to be. So, and there's no secret formula to making a band successful. First off, write. That's never stop writing. I mean, doesn't matter if you just released an album or you're in the studio or you're on the road or whatever it might be. You got to write, and you always have to write, and you have to save those ideas and revisit them later on. I mean, something may not make sense at the time that you're writing it, or a riff or whatever it might be. But years later, it could be something that really hits you and, becomes a massive hit. So I always tell artists, never stop writing, no matter what. And the other part of it is, when you're going to go into a studio, go in prepared, go in with a plan, like you should have. Don't go in the studio and write in the studio. I mean, it's a lot of wasted time, in my opinion, a lot of wasted money, especially on when you're not signed, you're paying for that studio time. So go in, be prepared, have your shit together, know how this process is going to work, and who's coming in on what days, and try to stay away from distractions within there. A lot of bands go in and they drink excessively, and some bands need that to be creative, and I get that part of it. But if you don't have to, go in, do your job, and get the fuck out. And it's simple as that.
That's pretty badass advice. I would agree. Yeah, right. And by the way, and you're right. Even if you're not directly paying for it and you're signing to a record label, you're still paying for it.
Yep.
They're still charging you for that time.
Absolutely.
You're going to get that bill. If they're fronting you the money, you're going to pay for it in sales or merch or whatever the case may be. You're still paying the bill. So
Yep.
Get in there, do your job, get the fuck out.
Yep.
I like it. Straight and forward. So you kind of answered the other question, which was, what are some don'ts? And it sounds like avoiding distractions was the don't. Any other don'ts? Any other things to kind of stray away from?
I highly recommend that every band works with a producer of some sort. I think I see a lot of bands going in trying to self-produce their own albums. You need that outside opinion. The band itself could think an idea is amazing when the bottom line it's absolute shit. But because it's your baby, you're never going to feel that way. You could think it's absolute shit when it's something that's brilliant. Like, you need that outside opinion to come in and guide you a little bit and help you through the process, I think. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule, and you're a bigger band that's been around for a long freaking time, and you know how to do this, and you're really good at it, and you've proven you're really good at it. You could probably self-produce your own album and, do it that way. But when you're starting out, you need that opinion. You really do. I mean, you have to have those outsider ears, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter. It's not going to be, what your band thinks. It's going to be what people outside of your band think, and that's going to make or break you.
What do you feel as though quantifies a great album? What makes a great album great?
I think it varies by opinion. I don't know that there's a right answer to that.
It's a subjective answer for sure.
I think you want to have, good riffs, good hooks. You want to follow the model of, verse, chorus, that kind of thing. It's just really tough to answer, because everyone has such a different opinion on what a great album. You can ask anybody, what do you think the best album in the world is, and you're going to get 100 different answers. So I think from a band's perspective, if you leave a studio and it's something you're really proud of and you feel really good about, then that makes a great album, for the band. For fans, it's something that they're going to want to listen to on repeat You know, they want to hear it on the radio. They want to hear it in their car, you know, constantly. Yeah, it's just such a tough question to break down and give a singular answer to, because I think there's a million different possibilities to a question like that. Short answer, yes. I think that people who use the term sellout are just creating noise at the end of the day. Like, either one, they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know all the facts. They don't know what went into a project and why decisions were made the way they were. And so when it's not the norm or something they're used to, they start using the term sellout, and I think it's just an easy excuse for people to complain because they don't like the way something was done or the process was done, or, you know, a song sounds. I think it's just noise in the background, to be honest with you. I think it's just people who don't know a lot about anything, and that's just an easy term to fall back on. I hate it, you know. I hate it. I look at Disturbed, and they did the cover of Sound of Silence. I mean, that song played on Kiss FM. You know, there was One Direction on Kiss FM followed by a Disturbed song. And sure, you had some people in the background saying they were sellouts. At the end of the day, it was a good fucking song. And that's what it was all about. They didn't give a shit what anybody thought or if they were going to be considered sellouts. It was a song that was so well done, the world needed to hear it. And, you know, they're not losing sleep over it. They're not losing fans over it. If anything, they gained some more fans, but it wasn't because they wanted to sell out and, you know, get into pop radio. It was because they evolve as a band, and when you evolve, sometimes you have to do things differently or change your mindset or push boundaries, and they push those boundaries. And if that makes an artist a sellout because they push boundaries, then fuck you.
That's awesome. The reason I asked that is because I know that there's artists that write with fear, and I try not to write with fear.
Yep.
One of the songs that I wrote for Baptized by Fire was a song called Tequila and Lime. It was actually a riff that was originally inspired by a Bruno Mars song. But I feel like, you know, when you readily admit that to some people, they're like, "The fuck you doing listening to Bruno Mars? Like, I thought you were Metallica." And it's like,
yeah.
Who cares?
And you know, those are the same people who are listening to it over and over, and they won't admit it, you know?
Right.
And those are the same people who probably love Bruno Mars on the side, you know, and they put on the front that, oh, I'm only a rock guy, and that's it, you know? But, I mean, listen, Bruno Mars is a super talented artist. Justin Timberlake's a super talented artist. Pink's a super talented artist. Like, a lot of these people are creative geniuses in their own right, and sure, it doesn't have to be in a genre of music that necessarily you like, but who cares, you know? Like, listen, like, some people like apples and some people like oranges. Are you gonna hate on someone because they like an apple and don't like an orange? I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's just smoke and mirrors and bullshit. I mean, like, if you don't like something, don't pay attention to it. And if you do, then pay attention to it.
I think it's a very primitive caveman, like, pack animal way of thinking. Like, if there's another genre or another pack, I need to beat my chest and show that I'm more manly or that I'm cooler than that pack because this is what I listen to.
Yep.
But secretly, you really enjoy that shit. Like,
yep.
That Bruno Mars song is so good, or that Bieber song is so good.
I mean, look at Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga, massive pop hits left and right. You know, she's also a huge rocker, and, you know, has sung with Metallica at the Grammys, and, you know, pushing boundaries over into rock, and the rock world loves her too. So, like, all of these genres can coexist and get along. I just think that these days everyone has an opinion. Again, it goes back to social media. Everyone's got a fucking opinion.
And they have a platform to share that
yes.
opinion, which can be very dangerous.
Yes. I think if you're done with an album and you don't know what you should be doing, you're already off track. you should know during that process of writing an album what the game plan is going in. You need to think about that ahead of time and say, you know, do we have a manager? Do we want a manager? Do we want PR? You know, if we have PR, what ammo can we give them to go out there and sell this thing? You know, do we want to go to radio? How do we get to radio? What's that process like? Are we with a label? Do we want to go on a label? You know, like once you hit send and the music is out there, it's out there and there's nothing you can do. You can't take it back. So there needs to be a strategic plan behind every single thing that you do. And I know as an artist, it's hard because you're so excited and you have such great material and you want to get it out there. But at the same time, like, you got to think of it as like a pot of gold, you know, and like, what are you going to do with that gold? Are you just going to throw it out there and let people just run with your pot of gold? Or are you going to like protect it for a minute and see how you can make that pot of gold into 2 pots of gold, you know? And there's a process to that. You know, you could, you know, license your music. That's another way. You don't have to be signed to do things like that to monetize, you know, on your own music. But you got to have a plan before you get to a point where your music's done. You have to know what you're going to do ahead of time. And part of that is just, you know, surrounding yourself with good business-minded people who can help you with that, you know, because listen, like a guy like me who's great on the business side of things, I'm not good with music. I couldn't write a song. I couldn't sing a song. I can't play an instrument, but I can do damn good business. Artists like you can do that. You can write good music and do all that stuff, but like at the end of the day, the business side is probably a little bit more challenging for you, you know, and that's why bands have managers. That's why there are labels, you know, because there's different, this is a business and there's different aspects of that business, and to make a business successful, you have to have experts in certain areas that will help you do that. Yeah, I mean, listen, like, you don't necessarily need a manager. You don't need a label. There's plenty of bands that are doing it that way right now. If that's the case, then you need to set the goal of getting your music into everyone's hands that you possibly can, because that's ultimately what's going to make it successful. The larger artists with labels, you know, they push it via radio, and that's how they get it out there to the masses. When you're a smaller band and you don't have that ability, you can still do that. It's just finding a creative way to do that, you know, and maybe that's offering your music for free. Maybe that's playing a ton of shows and you know, getting it out there. But at the end of the day, that's really everyone's goal, you know, whether you're big or small, is to get your music into as many people's hands as possible. I mean, at one point I managed a pop artist named Jess Godwin, and she would bake before every show. She was a really good baker, and she'd bake cakes and cookies, and she would entice people to come to her show just off the fact that she was really good at baking. And people would show up to eat cupcakes, and like, the show would be great and people would stick around for it, you know, and you know, it's like, listen, like Chicago, you've got food trucks like Flirty Girl cupcakes. I mean, you're paying, and this sounds really dumb, but you're paying like $4 for a cupcake. This girl's cupcakes were so good, probably better than Flirty Girl cupcakes, and people knew that, and so they would come to her shows just to get these free fucking cupcakes. But they would stay and listen to her music, and they'd walk away blown away as well. You know, I mean, like, that was something kind of creative that she knew was like, you know, another talent she had that she can incorporate and entice people to come to shows. When you're a local artist, it's hard, man. Like, you're pulling teeth, you're asking favors from friends, you know, come to my show. You know, the other thing that makes it difficult is all these venues are all about numbers. How many people can you draw? That's their biggest question, you know, and it's very rare that you find people who are just about the music these days and say, listen, like, we want to have live music in our venue. We don't care really how much you draw. We just know we want to have live music, and this is where people come regardless of who's playing. You know, I mean, maybe Nashville, maybe Austin are the only 2 cities that can really get away with it these days, because, you know, people are going to walk in those venues and want to hear music. But, you know, besides that, you look at LA or Chicago and New York, it's tough to play those clubs, and it's tough to get people out there. So you really need to be creative in how you do that. And her niche was baking. Dare to be different, push boundaries. I mean, that's what it's all about. No one wants to hear the same shit over and over. They want to hear something new, and they want to go to a show and walk away saying, wow, like that was crazy. I've never seen anything like that. If you can do those two things, you're going to be successful. I don't know, if anybody has seen The Dirt, the Motley Crue kind of documentary. I mean, you look right at the beginning of that documentary and it was like, we don't want to just have a band, we want to have a different band. And that's the mentality you have to have. Like, don't sound like somebody else, sound like you. If you can do that, you're off to a really good start. I think that an independent band can definitely put together a great team without a label, and surrounding themselves with good people. I actually think these days major labels are really not a right fit for a lot of artists, I mean, and especially you have so much turnover at these labels that had great people that are now going to smaller independent labels. So now you have really amazing people working at smaller labels that, you could work with. That's not such a far-fetched dream, like everybody at one point would love to be signed to Warner or Sony or whatever it is, but now I think the focus needs to change, especially if you're looking to get signed. Go more with an independent label, because they've got a lot of these people that have worked with these bigger labels in the past who were so good at the job that they made a lot of money, which was well deserved, but they're getting canned because of that, because they're making too much money. And so now they're going to smaller labels or starting their own labels, and smaller bands have the opportunity to go work with those great people, whereas they may not have prior to that. But if you're not looking to work with a label, everything is still doable. You just have to find the right people. Chance the Rapper is a great example. Like, he didn't go through a label. He did everything on his own, but it was also a great team of people. His manager, Pat, great dude who had a great vision and, very business savvy. And they made a lot of the right decisions, so much so that Chance blew up and he's Chance the Rapper now, So I think everything is attainable. It's just, you got to work at it. Nothing's going to come easy, no matter what road you take.
That was not my question.
That's tough. I think he wouldn't follow your rules, and he would tell him two things. He would tell him, number one, try not to be so trusting of everyone in this industry, which was the mentality I had going in. It's very trustworthy. A lot of people knew me as the kindest guy in the music industry, which to this day I feel great about. I did things the right way, but I also, I think, trusted some of the wrong people and learned hard lessons from that. That's number one. And number two is, it kind of contradicts point one, but no regrets, man. Like, do your thing and do it however you feel is the best way to do it, and fuck everything else. What are you going to be like when times get tough? What are you going to be like when you hit rock bottom? You get a million no's. You're looking for that one yes. You're beat down. Everyone hates your music. They say you suck. They say you don't have a chance. What are you going to do in that moment? If you can look at yourself in that moment and say, doesn't matter, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to go until I get to where I want to be, then that's the person that I want to work with. If you can't do that and can't put in the work and the effort, even when someone's kicked you in the balls 50 times, then this should just be a hobby.